Welcome to this edition of The Bigger Game. Our guest today is Jenn Giordano from SmartfulWorks, organizational psychologist and executive coach. How are you, Jenn?
I'm great. Feeling very good. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, I so appreciate taking a little bit of time out of your day to be with us today and share some of your wisdom around the whole landscape of leading through the current landscape. So many things we could talk about today. So I just appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Well, I'm honored to be here, honored to be with you. This is a real treat. So thank you.
Excellent. Tell me about the bigger game. What does it mean to you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love the name and I love the theme of the bigger game. And, for me and the work that I do, it's really how many lives can we impact in a positive way? And I think that that's the bigger game. So, when we wake up in the morning, what are we doing and what do I get to do? And I feel so incredibly honored by the work I do. And what does my team get to do to touch as many lives as possible? So that we're hopefully making the world of work a better place to exist within. So that's really what the bigger game means to me.
Yeah, and really that's even bigger than that, right? That's from the time I get up to the time I go to bed. So it's the cashier I interact with, and it's the people in traffic I come in contact with, or just pass on the freeway or whatever. It's all of that, right? And more.
Yes, absolutely. I to your point, I feel that we kind of get to put a fingerprint on everybody that we interact with. If we think about that, like, gosh, what am I leaving with this person? It makes a difference. And I think in the world of, people walking by cashiers and just scrolling on their phone, what can we do to look up and make their world of work, their moment better? And I think that if we start to think that way, we can actually have a pretty big impact.
Yeah, and I think that ripple effect, how many people did the cashier smile at after we left, and Leah left an imprint with those people. And
Yes.
then the ripple effect, right?
Yep.
And then the time, right? It's not even in that moment. It's ongoing for who knows how long. So it's not only expands number of people, the number of things, but also across time, right? That dimension as well. So
Yes.
it's quite a priceless thing, and we get to live it every day, right? We get to do that every day, whether we're in a coaching capacity or just some other, whatever our passion is in life, right? Just inside of that. So I think that's huge.
And I think that that's exactly it, is that it does not matter what you are doing to be able to have that positive impact. You can do any sort of job and still be able to impact somebody very positively. And I think that remembering that actually brings kind of a different lens to the way that we all show up in the world, the way that we all show up at work.
Yeah, I think just breathing, right? If I'm breathing, I can do
Not the truth.
that.
And praise God for the breathing.
Indeed. Thank God for that. I woke up on the right side of the dirt this morning, right? Yeah. Thank God for that.
So true.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. And the other side of that, of course, is that I can also leave a negative imprint on somebody, if I'm not careful. So
Yes.
just the power of human being and what I can do just by choice. I think
Well,
choice is a huge thing.
and to that point, right, we are much more likely as humans to see negative than we are positive. There's so many, elements of kind of the neuroscience behind why, right? It's a safety protection piece. So if we are going to kind of put that negative imprint, that's probably going to affect that person more deeply, right? It can be like a heart scar if we are going to be more negative. And so what are we doing to make sure that we are protecting other people from, it doesn't mean that we don't walk around with our own bad moods and our own bad moments, but we do have to remember how that can really impact other people.
And I think it goes the other way too, right? What I put out, I give back. So when I'm impacting people in whichever way I'm impacting people, positively or negatively, in the case in the context of this conversation, right? I get that back. So there's also this self, piece here that I can look at as well. Like what's the impact on me?
Yes.
Right. The golden rule. I can't give it away without getting it back from myself, right? So it's like whatever I give away, I'm going to get back. So tell me about the coaching world today and kind of what you're seeing and some interesting places there that are coming up now as we traverse. There's so many different things in the landscape today that are showing up, right? Take us down that path a little bit.
Well, it's been interesting. So I've always been on, I kind of call it the human side of corporate America. And so I started my career in the, late 90s, early 2000s, in recruiting and then training, and then went on my own as a organizational psychologist, executive coach in 2009, which is insane. And so the coaching world has changed a great deal. I mean, back down in 2009, most people didn't even know what a coach was. There was, obviously there's kind of certifications and ways that we are trying to ensure that coaching has standards and minimizes risk, but it's really become much more mainstream, which I love seeing, right? I love seeing people like yourself moving into this space. I say, I believe in the abundance of this industry. When I went out on my own, I was really looking to just do kind of one-on-one coaching. I really, I'd worked for these huge corporations, and I thought to myself, I do not want to do that anymore. I have seen, big corporate America, and I don't want to do that. I just want to do one-on-one coaching. And funny enough, how, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, how that didn't happen. And slowly but surely, my one coaching client turned into groups of people. And then I was lucky enough to kind of be able to build a team who's able to work with groups of people and one-on-one coaching as well. And so my game got bigger despite myself, even though I didn't want for it to when I went out on my own. And now I am so grateful that it's gone a different way. I feel so lucky for the team members I get to work with globally, other executive coaches who are out making this impact. And because the landscape has changed, because we're not having to explain to clients what executive coaching is, that's a much harder sell when they're like, what are you selling? And now they are actually coming to us to say, gosh, we need this. It has really, really impacted the amount of really deep, good work we can do with people and with clients. And I say, the world that we get to live in, you included, is we get to live in this space of kind of this confidential, sacred space with clients where they don't always feel that they can have these conversations outside of the walls of whatever it is we're doing, whether it's a small group or a larger classroom or a one-on-one executive coaching. And we give them this really protected, beautiful space. So that's kind of how I've seen it grow. More recently, we all know we're hearing about AI. And people are saying, gosh, how does AI affect the world of work? And what's the bigger game we can be playing with AI? And it's been interesting over about the last year, talking to leaders and working with organizations around really one of the things we're really trying to come up with them on, kind of come along, because I always say we are humbly not the experts. We truly are the support system, is how can you lead your people through this? AI is done through kind of software and technology platforms. But the behavior change, which can really impact your organization, is done with the hearts and souls of the people. And so how are leaders leading this tremendous change, and assuring they're not just looking at the software platforms, but they're really looking at how are their people going to come along for this? And that's been an interesting journey to be on.
So tell us more about that. So what have you noticed? What challenges have come up in that conversation as you look to navigate that space, right? It seems like a whole new greenfield, right, to walk through.
Yes, absolutely. What we are noticing is there's kind of this big divide, first of all, between people at the top of the organization, say the C-suite, versus the employees. Right now, there's a statistic out there that only 3% of the C-suite is using AI, where 30% of employees are. So I think that there's a And then therefore, I think there's a little bit of a fear with employees around, do I tell my bosses I'm using this, right? There's still a little bit of a misnomer that if I'm using AI, I'm cheating. And one of the pieces that we're trying to support people and really educate, especially that, C-suite, is it's not cheating if people are learning more efficient, more effective ways to do their job. We would never tell somebody not to use a calculator or not to use Excel, do their math work with a pen and pencil. Um, and so, what is AI doing to allow your employees to be better, right? To move some of the mundane work off of their plates and be able to think more strategically and in more innovative ways of thinking. So that's one of the pieces we're seeing is how are we reframing this so people look at AI as a wonderful tool to be able to allow our people to do some more inspiring work, to come up with more inspiring creative ideas. Um, One of the other elements is because of this kind of divide of the upper levels of leadership not using it as much, not maybe interacting, not knowing, and versus the employees kind of, let's call it, on the ground, is the idea that these leaders have to humble themselves. They have to be curious. They have to ask some really good questions. They have to be educated by the employees who, let's say on the org chart or below them. And as we know, it doesn't really matter where you are in the org chart. You can be a leader at any place in the org chart, but sometimes some leaders are going to have to ask some good questions. And so that's one of the pieces that we're seeing is really allowing that humility and curiosity of the people at the top of the org chart for people more in the general parts of organizations.
Yeah, that's a similar problem with a different context, right? And not today it's AI. Before it was the technology. Before that, before it was the newest fangled widget. Before that, that seems to be a common thread across the coaching world, right? Because we're all human beings, and we've always been human beings from the day we were born until the day we're not, right? And so, I think we end up that's where I think coaching seems to play the biggest role, right? Relationships, communication, humility. Um, I often tell my coachees that true power is vulnerability is true power.
Yes.
Right. And
yes.
True power is having the power and then not using it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Being able to do something and then not doing it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that part of the coaching piece is consistent across all these different aspects. And you just brought the highlight on the AI space where everyone is just, most people right now are still trying to get their head around how to use it. Is it, the around the fear, the concern, will it replace me? Am I going to become a plumber tomorrow? Right. It seems like everyone wants to be a plumber now. Right. Some kind of skills trade, right? Some kind of skills trade, right? So, it's probably a bigger disruption than I've, probably close to the internet, if not more. It just depends on where you are on that continuum and what you're currently doing, right? But I think that's a very interesting place you went with taking leadership and allowing leadership to actually receive input in a meaningful way.
Yes.
And actually build team culture and all of that around the mission, right? Around that construction. Because when I can pull the whole team together as a leader, pull the whole team together and be open and take all that in, everyone feels like they belong as part of that conversation.
Yes.
Right. Now the whole team, the whole company is rowing in one direction rather than people trying to figure out, like you said, should I be using AI? Should I tell my boss? Should I not tell my boss? All those heebie-jeebie conversations and all the disconnects tend to mitigate themselves over time.
Yes. And that fear that you talked about, I think is great. There is a decent and for good reason amount of fear around what is AI going to do to my job, right? And so I think that it's upon the leaders to say, well, what's actually in it for you as an employee? How does this make you better? And I think that, we talk a little bit about, I don't know if you've ever seen Covey's kind of matrix of urgent versus important. so much in the world of, the world we live in. I'm sure we can all talk about, and I've heard for millions of years, not millions of years, but millions of conversations. It feels like the one thing that's holding me back is my email inbox, or my Teams messages, or my Slack. And so if that was holding us back for all these years, and that was kind of the mundane work, if we can at least offload some of that, what does it allow us to do? What does our mind space get to be concentrated on? And that's where I think, real leaders can inspire, get people in the room, communicate, listen, have everybody rowing towards the same, ultimate mission or vision for your organization, whatever that may be, in kind of the most creative, innovative way, where we may have been bogged down by emails and unnecessary meetings that AI is able to account for a bit more. So I think that's where leaders need to say, like, no, I want you to give this to AI, and now I want you to use that incredible brain of yours to come up with something innovative and exciting. And I think that that's where we can really lean in as leaders. And that's where we can get our organizations to be playing the bigger game.
Yeah, if you roll that back into previous, like just our histories, right? Imagine the washing machine.
Yeah.
Like before, I'd have to sit there and I'd have to use a washboard. So now I don't have to washboard. Now the machine's doing the work, so I can be thinking about other things and doing what you talked about, having those, doing the other things that I couldn't get to because I was physically doing the washing myself, right?
Yes.
So I think it's kind of like that. It sits right inside of that. When I can think that way, it takes away a lot of that concern, a lot of the fears. I mean, there will be some changes, obviously. I think there's a certain set of the population that's going to have to retool, and because AI is just going to replace them. But I think at different levels, I think it becomes what we talked about, where it gives you more time now to think about and have those conversations and make life potentially more meaningful than it was before. Get rid of all the mundane stuff you were talking about.
Well, and I think that, listen, I do believe in kind of, you talked about like power and not using power basically for destructive reasons. And I also believe that employees, right? We've been kind of talking about what the leaders can do, but employees, again, being a leader, should say, hey, this is what I've found AI can do to help me with my job. And this is what it's allowing me to do more of, which I think is much more valuable and impactful to our organization. Show that to your boss, right? Before I was spending X amount of time doing this, kind of thoughtless, mindless work. And now, because I've been able to leverage the AI tools, I've been able to do this other work. And this is how the work connects to the mission and the vision of our organization. So we can row in the same direction faster, stronger than we were before. And I think that, employees have to put some narrative around their, what they can do with these tools.
And I think part of that, the executive coaching, aspect to this is that, we don't get so hyper focused on productivity.
Yes.
Because that's we can quickly go down that path and use AI to okay, let's move faster, let's move even faster, instead of taking the time out to actually, okay, now that that's being done, let's actually connect deeper, right?
Yes.
Culture, mission, all of those other things that really drive ownership of all the employees in the company. Right? Yeah. We have time to actually develop that, which I think, if you look at some of this outlier, studies and stuff, right? What is it? Like 99% are like in the middle, and there's only like 1.1% even that are outlier companies that actually run the market for whatever industry they're in, right? How do you get to that? One of those pieces to get to the outlier piece is to have everybody rowing in the same direction and everybody vested in doing that. I mean, there's other pieces, right? You got to focus on one thing, not a gazillion things, all those other things that go into that. However, a big part of that is in the context of this conversation is having the team row together. And yes. I think that AI gives us the ability to now bring our companies and our employees closer together and making them tighter knit. And I think that gets lost sometimes in the noise of the disruption itself.
Yes. And I think that you're exactly right. I think that this idea of how do we make sure that we're thinking about it for good, right? And we've heard about tech companies for many years adding in, hack days, or, where the urban legend, I don't know if this is correct, is, the Google Maps came from a hack day years ago. And that, they are one of those outlier companies, right? So how can we all, I think most of us, as you were saying, the productivity have gotten almost like caught in the productivity um, story and then the trap. And we know from what happened during COVID, where everybody was sent home, and we were all like, God, I can get, just by not being in the office, I can get through my to-do list so much quicker. But there's a deep, deep kind of dissatisfaction. And what we ended up hearing, especially from newer employees in the workforce, was I didn't like being disconnected. I didn't feel like I was part of a team rowing in the same direction, right? There's kind of the intangible parts of work. It's not just one long to-do list. It's feeling that we are connected to other people. It's feeling that we are moving forward with a mission. And I think that organizations who want to be one of those outliers, the best ways, going to have to find ways to do that all together and inspire their folks. It's not just about a to-do list and productivity. It's so much more.
So when you look at your journey to get here, corporate America, one-to-one coaching, boutique firm, practice even, and now back to a decent sized company again. And I mean, a number of people and things like that, it's grown again, right? Is what I mean to say. Take us a little bit down that journey and maybe share a nugget or two, personally, professionally, that you've gleaned through this process that we could all learn from.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I, again, kind of by accident, ended up building a team, a global team. And I talked to a lot of leaders about, what are your values? What are the values that your organization has? And they should be unique to you. And I saw it, and it's super cheesy, but I saw this sign years back and it really resonated with me. And I thought, that's the value of my organization. And it just said, if you're really kind and you work really hard, good things will happen. And I think that that's really been it. What we sell is people in the executive coaching space, or, corporate executive coach facilitators or organizational psychologists. We're not selling an iPhone where you know what you're going to get, or Coca-Cola. We are really, we are in the business of relationships and trust and people and connection. And that's a hard thing to reproduce. And I have found that if I really go out with the people and build a team where we are really kind to one another and we work really, really hard for one another, it's almost like, how can I work a little bit harder for you to take something off your plate? And then how can I just be a really moral, ethical, kind human to you? That's going to become contagious to our clients. And that's really been the secret sauce. It sounds kind of cliche and silly and like something that would be, on a plaque on a cheesy wall and, a maybe country store. But I actually think that it's true. If you are just truly kind, really in an authentic way, and work really, really hard, your company kind of grows despite itself. And that doesn't mean that there's not challenges. And there was definitely moments where, I thought, where's my next client? I think that about daily. So I'm consistently a little bit scared that the cliff's going to fall off. And finally, my mentor had to say to me, you've been in business for a long time. I think you're okay. But, I think my fear that there's not another client ever again is a decent humbling tool. But, that's what we've been doing, and it's been successful so far. So.
Yeah, I think that's, I think in today's world where it seems the more obnoxious I am, the more airtime I get,
Yeah.
right? And in a world where families get, there's divorces happening and there's people not coming over for holiday meals or being invited, it just based on difference of opinion, right? I think kindness is a very timely concept.
Yeah.
And it's not just a concept. I mean, it's a way of life, right? I think if we look, there's a huge bridging conversation going on now where people are trying to get back to a conversation where you know, like I can love you like a brother or a sister, and we can all be Americans, and still the topic of, that comes up. We can randomly disagree. We can still also be really committed to being, brother and sister, and to your point, being kind,
Yes.
right? Just being Americans, right?
Yes.
Being kind. I think that's a huge conversation. I don't find it cliche at all. I think it's a very timely, we're talking about outliers. I think that's actually a refreshing place for people. Oh my God, you're like that. I think I want to work with you, right? I think that, right.
Well,
I didn't know that still existed. So I think that's huge.
And it
That
is
is
that
great.
authentic kindness too, right? The idea with my team, I always say that, hey, our relationships are made in the margins. Our client service is in the margins. Like what we do in the coaching, absolutely. I feel very lucky. The people on our team are highly skilled, right? What they can do in front of a class of leaders is unbelievable. They are incredible. I watch them. I think, oh my gosh, they've got wonderful ways of being able to communicate knowledge to leaders. That's great. But it's what you do behind the scenes, the little places of kindness, of, speaking to that client, of realizing that client's going through a hard moment, of maybe that client just dropped their child off at college for the first time, right? That's an emotional moment to be able to say, hey, how are you doing? How is it feeling for you? And it sounds silly, but just even remember that person did that. And mean it. Don't do it because you're trying to get the next sale. Do it because you actually care about that human being. And I think that is, and some of it is people are not doing it because they're unkind. Some of it's we're overworked too, right? So in this world where there is a lot of disruption and nobody can disagree and nobody can have a decorum, I always say, be the diplomat in the room. Who's the diplomat here? There's no diplomats, right? How do we have decorum? And that is a good way to be, but also just take the time. I think that we are all very busy. If we can take the time to have a small conversation with somebody, to connect with them and hear how they're doing, that's going to go a long ways.
So tell me about, kindness. Kindness as a concept, and having it as a mission or a goal or a value is all great stuff. Take us into the trenches for a minute and share with us, maybe if you have one, an example where kindness wasn't easy in the moment, yet it delivered, right?
Yep. Well, when you have large contracted clients, you have to have hard conversations, right? When we're negotiating large contracts. And I'll tell you, I had a conversation over the last few days with a client and I just so respect her. And she was delivering kind of yucky news to me. And I immediately I knew that her call to me felt very heavy for her. We really, really respect each other. We really, really like each other. It was not her making, this, having to give me this news. It's just the organization and what's happened. And I think that, I did it kind of only because you've asked me about this, and it was the first thing that came to my mind was, I know this was a really hard call for you. And I know that you saw this on your calendar and you knew you had to give me this news. And I'm sorry that you had to be the person to tell me this. And I really respect what you said, and that deep empathy for, I could have been like, I'm so upset with the news that you just shared me. But bad news is if you don't want to hear bad news and you don't want to have courageous conversations, don't leave your bed, right? Like it is what it is. And I think that, just knowing that is like, hey, none of us are out. I mean, we shouldn't be out to give bad news or to give hard feedback or to tell somebody something that doesn't feel good. If we can really empathize and kind of step into that. And, she said, Jen, thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it. I did not want to have this. I really care about you. I care about your company. And so, you know what? And she and I are great. It's lovely. We kind of said like, well, what can we do together to help this for both of us? Because it was hard for her too. And I think that, if you can come out of it feeling like, gosh, that hard news or that bad news actually made me feel closer to that person, then actually the news or the business part of it almost starts to fall away because the relationship's always going to be what trumps everything.
Yeah, I mean, that brings us to that another axiom that we always hear, right? Which is, adversity is just another spot for an opportunity, right? The challenge is really just an opportunity, or however it's said. I think I butchered that, but and that's
Sounds
really what
good to me.
happens here, right? I mean, not only did you share a nugget about kind, that's not about just about kindness and how you played that out, but also it became the challenge became the opportunity to become closer to another human being, right? I
Yes,
think that's how you're more valuable than the actual business relationship. So because
absolutely.
business comes and goes, and it'll come as it comes and goes as it goes. However, that human relationship is so precious, right? And you
Yes,
just deal, and because of how you chose to play it from kindness, it became that much deeper.
yes.
How many times do we end up in that situation, like you said, where I haven't thought this through, or I'm just reacting to a situation and not responding. Like, I've forgotten my value of kindness,
Yeah.
and I'm just reacting to something, and I miss the opportunity to deepen the relationship or deepen something else, right? Like that richness disappears because I chose to react versus respond. Like, what's the
I,
opportunity?
and to your point, and I'm not going to paint a picture, right? Like, I was born in New York City. I lived in New York City for many years. I can be triggered. I don't always I don't always step into my own kindness, integrity, and the way I want. So I don't want anybody to think, because I think that we're also human, right? Like going, gosh, I just tripped up. I got a little triggered. I acted in a way I didn't love of myself. And being able to go back and mend that, right? Say, gosh, that was not my best self. And being forgiving of ourselves. We're all kind of walking around in a world with a lot going on. Whatever your journey is, we know that we can have a moment where we're not as kind as we wish we were. It's just really reflecting on that and then mending the relationship afterwards. And I think that that's truly the most important piece. And I think that's what's missing in the world. I think a lot of people probably do know, like, I wasn't my best self in that moment. But then how do you go back and make sure you say that out loud? You have the vulnerability and then mend the relationship and try to learn from it yourself. That's missing, and that is really hard for me. I mean, again, I'm kind of a New Yorker by trade. I have a Southern accent. And I'm like, oh, wasn't my best self. I got to pick up that phone call and apologize. Ugh.
But that comes to other saying, and I'm gonna butcher this one too. But it's like, what is that one about? Uh, um, I have to pass because I can't remember I can't remember now. But I think that's huge. I think the ability to be vulnerable in those moments and take that next step
Yeah.
is really difficult, right? I mean, sometimes, and to overcome that. But at the other side of that, once I do that, how much lighter do I feel, and how great do I feel after that?
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
It's not the fact that I screwed up, because we all screw up. We're all human beings. We all have our moments, right? It's the character that's missing, right? When I don't take the next step, and it shows my character when I own up to something or I don't, or whatever. I think it speaks to that. And that's the lifelong journey of how do I build my character, and how do I preserve that reputation, character, all those things, right?
Yeah.
Civility, etiquette, all those things that matter, right?
Yeah. And I
So
think
I think
that
that's
character piece is exactly right. Like, who do we want to be in this world? Who do we want, our children to look at us and go, okay, that's a good example, or the people on our team or our clients, whoever it is, right? Like, you want to be the person. I don't, believe me, I'm dyslexic. I'm never going to be the most intelligent person in the room. I always fumble so many different things, but I'm like, okay, is that actually what matters the most? Like, I would rather be able to fumble all the facts and statistics, and I can never have like a really intellectual debate with somebody, but I'm hoping that somebody says, like, she's got a pretty high character. She's, got integrity and kindness and diplomacy. Um, and that's hard. I'm still a work.
but
I'm a work in progress.
yeah, we all are. And I think that's another place where I think coaching plays a significant impact role, right? Is when I know I have the potential to be my higher self, like character wise or pick whatever word you want to use, right? And I don't do that, and I cut it myself, but I clean it up because I don't clean it up, because I take the quicker road, right? It's like death by 1,000 cuts in my character.
Yes.
And then I don't live it to my full potential, and I know I could be that potential. And
Yeah.
I do it over and over and over again. Where do I end up? What cesspool do I end up in as my experience of myself, right? I think, and that's a big part of at least my experience in the coaching world of, allowing people to unpack and then step into their higher selves as they lead organizations, as they do whatever their daily thing, whatever it might be.
Yes.
Relationships and everything else.
And I think you're right. The higher self piece it's not just about the work. And it's not even always about the other people. It's what do you want for yourself, like your higher self? Who do you want to be in this world? And I think that, that self-reflection is sometimes hard. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's fun. On the good days, you're like, yeah, God, I did that well. I, had a great conversation. I inspired people. It's the days where it's hard, which is actually where the growth is, as we know.
Yeah. And so and I think that's where, as a fellow coach, like you, right, that's where the blessing is for me. They play some small part. I mean, the coachee is the courageous one here, right? They're the ones making the choices and taking the action. Play some small part in that journey and notice something, ask a question, say something, whatever it is, whatever contribution I'm able to make, however small, and then watch their trajectory change as they step into that potential, their higher self, their character, pick it, right? I think that's where the sauce is for me.
Yes. And again, it's that idea that, as you're saying, that the coachee is doing the work and giving them the space for them to be able to do that work is so beautiful, right? And I feel very just honored to be able to do this work. A lot of people don't get to live in the spaces that you and I do with other humans. And so to your point, it really is. I mean, I kind of laugh. I'm like, I'm a little selfish because I get to do really fun work. Everybody should want to be a coach, right?
Yeah, excellent. So it's been a great conversation. Is there anything else you want to add, or maybe you want to take this and sum it all up for us and leave us with some final thoughts? I'd love to hear you wrap this up for us.
Well, thank you for the conversation. It's so fun. The time has gone by so quickly. I really, summing it up, I do believe if you're going to play the bigger game, I believe that do it really authentically to yourself. Be humble, be curious, and be kind, and work really hard. We're not going to get there unless we work really hard. So I think that really kindness and hard work are going to really pay off for whatever industry you are in and whatever place you are in life. So that would be my parting words.
Very nice. Jenn, thanks so much for your time. You gave it so freely and really left us with lots of nuggets to consider and take away here today. So I appreciate that. Kindness will be a big one. And, navigating AI from a powerful place, a place of power and ownership versus being a result of AI, right? I think is huge, as you talked about today. If people want to contact you further or reach out to you or learn more, how do they do that?
Well, there's my website, which is SmartfulWorks.com, or you can even email me at Jenn@SmartfulWorks.com. So that would be wonderful. I'd love to hear from people.
All right. Thanks so much for being on today, Jenn. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.